Every day, millions of us get behind the wheel. We drive to work, to pick up our kids, to grab groceries, or just to escape for a moment. And for most of us, when those familiar red and blue lights flash in our rearview mirror, it's an inconvenience, a moment of mild anxiety, perhaps. A ticket for a taillight, a missed turn signal, maybe even just a warning. But what if that routine stop, that mundane interaction, became something else entirely? What if a minor traffic infraction spiraled into an irreversible tragedy? This isn't about isolated incidents. It's about a recurring pattern. A pattern that begins with a simple pullover and ends with a life cut short, leaving behind questions, grief, and a nation grappling with the weight of justice. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on 4 such cases. 4 traffic stops that became fatal encounters, forever changing families, communities, and the conversation around policing in America. Stay with us as we meticulously unpack each one, from the initial stop to the final verdict, asking what truly happened when the ordinary became the unspeakable.
Case 1. Philando Castile, July 6, 2016, Falcon Heights, Minnesota. It's a summer evening, just after the dinner hour. A car moves through Falcon Heights, a small, quiet suburb tucked between St. Paul and Minneapolis. Inside the car, Philando Castile at the wheel, his girlfriend Diamond Reynolds in the passenger seat, and her young daughter in the back. Philando is 32 years old, a school cafeteria supervisor at J.J. Hill Montessori. To hundreds of students, he's Mr. Phil, the adult who knows your name, remembers your allergies, and maybe slips you extra vegetables because he's keeping an eye on you. He wears the kind of everyday kindness that leaves fingerprints on a community. Blue lights appear in the rearview mirror, a traffic stop. The reason will later be debated, and multiple explanations will circulate. But for Philando and Diamond, at that moment, it's the familiar choreography of a roadside encounter. Pull over, roll the window down, hands on the wheel, be respectful, be clear. When the officer approaches, Philando does what many permit holders are taught to do. He volunteers information. He says he has a firearm and that he has a permit. He's not reaching for it. The officer's voice tightens. He tells Philando not to pull it out. Philando says he's not. What happens next unfolds in a blur. A hand moving toward a pocket for a wallet, the officer's alarm spiking, a volley of 7 shots into the car. The sound is too loud for such a small space. Diamond's voice rises in shock and terror. The little girl whimpers in the back. Somehow, in the chaos, Diamond begins to live stream the aftermath, her hands shaking, her voice narrating. It is a surreal act of witness. Her words are calm and imploring, the way a person's voice narrows to a single beam of focus when the ground gives way beneath them. She asks Philando to stay with her. She speaks to the officer. She speaks to the world. The child tries to comfort her mother. Millions of people would see that video, a family in crisis, the unblinking eye of a phone capturing the raw edge between life and death inside a car that, moments earlier, was just another car at a stoplight. First responders arrive. Philando is taken to the hospital. He does not survive. The next days are heavy with grief and anger. People gather. They make signs. They say his name, Philando. They talk about Mr. Phil and his students, about the way he kept order through respect, not fear, how he paid for lunches when parents fell behind, how his calm steadiness seemed to be a kind of school glue that held the day together. The conversation spills into living rooms and city council chambers. Why did this happen? Why did the traffic stop escalate? What training tells an officer to fire into a car with a child in the back seat? What would it mean to measure the success of a traffic stop not just by officer safety, but by everyone's safety? The legal proceedings begin. The officer, Geronimo Yanez, is charged with second-degree manslaughter and 2 counts of dangerous discharge of a firearm. A trial follows. In the courtroom, experts discuss perception, threat assessment, use of force policy. The jury hears Yanez say he thought he saw a gun, that he feared for his life. The defense argues that an officer's split-second judgment deserves deference. The prosecution argues that Philando's calm disclosure and the absence of a drawn weapon point to an unjustified use of force. After deliberation, the jury acquits Yanez on all charges. Acquittal is a legal conclusion, not an erasure for grief. The community reacts. The family reaches a civil settlement. The city and police department announce training updates and policy reviews. The superintendent of schools talks about the loss of a man who smiled at kids every day. Parents write notes to the cafeteria. People bring flowers to the school. They remember him walking across the linoleum, a tray in his hands, a joke ready. His students, hundreds of them, feel an absence that doesn't fit into a headline. The children who saw him as part of the architecture of their day now learn what it means for that to be gone. There is, in the long shadow of Philando Castile's death, a deeper reckoning with how routine enforcement intersects with risk and perception. Many with concealed carry permits ask, "What should I do differently?" Black drivers ask, "What more can I do?" Officers ask, "How can we slow our reactions and still go home safe at night?" Families ask the oldest question there is, if he had been someone else, would this still have happened? These questions don't have simple answers, but they echo down the years that follow, surfacing in every new video, every new stop, every community meeting where people who share the same streets try to agree on what safety means. Philando's name remains in murals and in memories, a benchmark in the national consciousness, the man who told the truth at a traffic stop and died anyway. The live stream exists as a kind of mirror, unwanted, unforgiving, impossible to look at, and impossible to forget. It is where we begin, because it is where an era of seeing begins. Not just hearing about what happened, but watching it unfold, in close-up, as if we were there in the passenger seat.
Case 2. Daunte Wright, April 11, 2021, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Nearly 5 years pass. In another Minneapolis suburb, spring is trying to open. It is April 2021, and the Twin Cities are already tense. In downtown Minneapolis, the trial of Derek Chauvin is underway. The streets hold that brittle quiet that comes when a city draws in a long breath. Daunte Wright is 20 years old. He is a son and a father. He is driving a white car through Brooklyn Center when an officer notices expired registration tags and, according to reports, a hanging air freshener that may violate Minnesota's law against windshield obstructions. The reasons are small, familiar, the kind of things many of us have addressed at a gas station or let slide for a week too long. But for Daunte, the lights go on and the car pulls over. The first moments look ordinary. License and insurance, the brief tension in the air that always saturates a stop. Then the officer runs his name and discovers an outstanding warrant related to a missed court appearance on a weapons charge. Backup arrives. The officers inform Daunte they're placing him under arrest. They turn him toward the car to handcuff him. He pulls away and tries to get back into the driver's seat. The officers draw closer, voices overlapping, commands, warnings, the cadence of urgency rising. One officer, Kim Potter, reaches for what she shouts is a taser. Taser, taser, taser. The words, in training, are meant to alert everyone that a less lethal device is about to be used, but in her hand is a firearm. She fires once. Daunte's car lurches forward. It travels a short distance and collides. He is pronounced dead at the scene. It takes only seconds for a mistake to become irreversible. In those seconds, there are all the human reactions we can imagine and all the ones we cannot.
Our minds try to rationalize, to control what we've just seen, but the body knows. It knows that a young man is gone. It knows that a mother will receive a phone call no one should receive. It knows a community will cry out so loudly that even the people who pretend not to hear will feel the vibration through the floor. The video is released. In it, Potter's voice is panicked. Immediately after the shot, she cries, "Holy, I shot him!" It is a sentence whose existence collapses the distance between training and reality. The foundational discipline of policing, awareness, equipment proficiency, force continuum, was supposed to make such a confusion impossible. And yet, here we are, with body cam footage, with a grieving family, with a city bracing for impact. Protests begin, peaceful, angry, a mix of candlelight and chanting, of hand-lettered signs and organized mutual aid. The smell of rain and tear gas alternates. The world's cameras swing from the courthouse downtown to Brooklyn Center. The mayor addresses the public. The governor speaks. The students who grew up with the memory of Philando and the video of George Floyd are now adults. The teenagers who watched demonstrations on their phones now stand in the street. Kim Potter resigns and is charged with first- and second-degree manslaughter. The legal argument is devastatingly simple: gross negligence leading to the death of Daunte Wright. At trial, jurors see the body cam footage many times. They listen to days of testimony about training, the distinct weight and feel of a taser versus a handgun, the cross-draw method designed to prevent confusion, and the expectation that an officer confirm the tool in hand before deployment. The prosecution says that even under stress, the mistake is inexcusable. The defense asks the jury to consider human fallibility in a rapidly evolving scenario. The jury returns guilty verdicts on both manslaughter counts. The judge sentences Potter to a term of imprisonment. She serves the custodial portion before being released under supervision. The sentence itself becomes a subject of debate, with some arguing it's too lenient and others seeing it as harsh for what they view as a tragic error. But the verdict gives the Wright family something many families do not get: a measure of official acknowledgement that a crime occurred. Brooklyn Center reaches a civil settlement with the family, pledges policy changes, and begins a broader conversation about how and why traffic stops happen in the first place. Discussions emerge around whether low-level stops for tags or minor equipment violations should be handled differently, whether alternative response models could de-escalate encounters, whether the goal is to generate revenue, ensure compliance, or actually make roads safer. In the end, Daunte is not a case file or a policy debate. He is a person whose absence is the heaviest thing in his family's home. There are photos that will never be updated, shoes that will never need replacing, a child who will grow up with stories instead of memories. The edge of this story is not sharp because it's unique in its horror, but because it is so ordinary. So easily, most of us could have been in that driver's seat one spring afternoon, an envelope with registration papers on the kitchen table at home, the air freshener swinging with the soft weight of normal life.
Case 3. Patrick Lyoya, April 4th, 2022, Grand Rapids, Michigan. It is a chilly Monday morning in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The sky is overcast and there's a kind of early week stillness on neighborhood streets. A patrol car notices a vehicle with a license plate that doesn't match the car, a mismatch that can signal a clerical error, a fix-it issue, or sometimes something more. The officer flips around, activates the lights, and the car pulls to a stop. The driver steps out, confused, which is not what an officer wants to see during a traffic stop. The officer, voice firm, instructs him to get back in the car. The driver is 26-year-old Patrick Lyoya. He was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and came to the United States with his family seeking safety from unrest and violence. He works, he has friends, he laughs loudly, he shares food from home with new neighbors. English is not his first language, and stress can make second languages go mute. The officer asks for his license. Patrick looks for it, but he doesn't produce one. The officer moves to detain him, and Patrick takes several steps away. The tension spikes instantly. Patrick runs, a short sprint across a small stretch of grass, and the officer chases. They struggle. On a lawn beside a curb, the officer tries to deploy his taser. It misfires or misses. Patrick grabs at it, and for long, chaotic seconds, they grapple over control of the device. The officer shouts commands. Patrick is on the ground, face down. The taser is no longer a factor. The officer draws his firearm and fires a single shot into the back of Patrick's head at point-blank range. A bystander records the end of the struggle on a phone, and later, the city will release body cam, dash cam, and surveillance footage from nearby homes. The quiet that follows is the kind that seems to absorb light. There's the snap of the wind. There's the terrible realization: another man is dead. The officer will later be identified as Christopher Schur. He initially is placed on leave and then fired. The county prosecutor, Chris Becker, charges him with second-degree murder after a review of the videos and the autopsy. In statements, the prosecutor emphasizes that deadly force must be reasonable and necessary under the totality of the circumstances, and that once the taser was no longer a live threat, the legal justification for a lethal shot diminished dramatically. For Patrick's parents, the pain is layered. They left a country where they were afraid of armed men in uniforms. They learned to trust the idea that here, order is paired with oversight, that the badge is a promise. In press conferences, his father speaks in a voice that wobbles with grief and the effort to find words in a language that can feel too small for such sorrow. His mother describes the way Patrick smiled. They show family photos. They bring their heartbreak into public on purpose because they want this to matter beyond hashtags and news cycles. They want the world to see Patrick not only as a victim, but as a son who loved music, who teased his siblings, who held his own children with gentle hands. The city of Grand Rapids reacts. Some defend the officer's decisions in the heat of the moment. Many others see the shot to the back of the head of a prone man as indefensible. Protests are relatively calm but steely, the kind of action that looks like a community refusing to be hurried past a moment that demands attention. Faith leaders gather. Immigrant groups and refugee advocacy organizations speak, connecting Patrick's death to a broader anxiety among those who came here to escape violence, only to confront new forms of vulnerability. Legally, the case moves methodically. There are pre-trial hearings, motions, scheduling orders. The defense seeks to contextualize the fight over the taser, arguing that once a suspect gains control of a less lethal weapon, the risk to an officer is still lethal because of the possibility of incapacitation. The prosecution stresses proportionality, the change in circumstances once the taser was out of play, and the principle that flight or resistance does not automatically legalize lethal force. As of late 2024, the case had not yet gone to trial and no conviction had been secured. That fact, while procedural, is a hurtful limbo for many. Too late for Patrick, too soon for justice, a waiting room where hope and anger sit side by side, tapping their feet, staring at the closed door. And in the middle of this waits the core human complication we rarely name out loud. We ask police to absorb risk as part of their job, but we do not grant them a blank check to eliminate risk by eliminating people. Finding the line is not a math problem. It is a moral equation worked out in real time, in rain, on grass, with hands trembling, with heartbeats loud enough to drown out training. That is why the rules must err on the side of life, because the human nervous system, under threat, is a poor judge of the value of a stranger's future. Patrick's name, like Philando's and Daunte's, becomes a marker, a point in a pattern that feels less like coincidence and more like a map. Minor stop, escalation, lethal outcome. His parents speak his name with the weight of all the parents who have done the same, and they ask again the question that should make us all sit a little straighter. Why is this something we have to beg to change?
Case 4. Tyre Nichols, January 7, 2023, Memphis, Tennessee. It is night in Memphis. The kind of winter night where the cold cuts the sound thinner, where streetlights make halos on moist pavement. A car is stopped by officers from a specialized unit, the Scorpion Unit, designed to suppress violent crime with proactive patrols and aggressive stops. The allegation is reckless driving. The driver is 29-year-old Tyre Nichols. He works at FedEx. He loves skateboarding. He takes photographs of sunsets and cityscapes, the way a camera can make a street seem holy if you find the right angle. He is on his way home, close enough to call for his mother and expect she might hear him. The stop escalates almost immediately. Multiple officers cluster. Commands are shouted, overlapping, contradictory. Tyre is pulled from his car, thrown to the ground, pepper sprayed, struck. He bolts and runs. For a moment he is a shadow sliding along the street, sneakers against the concrete, the kind of run that is 80% fear and 20% instinct, and maybe the rest is love, a line drawn between where he is and where his mother is. Officers catch up to him, and what follows is a sustained beating, kicks, punches, baton strikes while Tyre is restrained. The body camera footage is difficult to watch, not only because of the violence, but because of the tone, a cruelty that feels detached from any immediate threat, a group aggression that seems to feed on itself. It is not a struggle, it is a beating. Tyre is left propped against a car, writhing, clearly in distress. Fire department personnel arrive but do little for too long. The minutes pass like hours. Eventually, he is transported to the hospital. 3 days later, he dies. His mother speaks to the world with a voice both breaking and unbreakable. She says her son yelled for her, and that is a sentence that should stop traffic everywhere, at all times. The city releases the videos. The images are shared, dissected, replayed. People in living rooms and on public buses and in break rooms watch as a man is beaten by those sworn to protect him. The bureaucracy moves fast at first. Memphis fires 5 officers: Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. The Scorpion Unit is disbanded. The Shelby County District Attorney charges the officers with second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, and official misconduct. The U.S. Department of Justice opens federal civil rights cases and launches a pattern or practice investigation into the Memphis Police Department. The fire department employees on scene face consequences for failing to render adequate aid. There are ripple effects in policy memos and training plans, in special unit oversight, and early warning systems designed to flag officers who accrue complaints. One of the officers, Desmond Mills Jr., pleads guilty to federal civil rights charges and later to a reduced state charge, agreeing to cooperate with prosecutors. The others, as of late 2024, maintain their pleas and await trial. The legal process grinds forward on a schedule that is allergic to the urgency that families feel. And yet, even here, there is a thread of accountability that ties back to the first days after the footage is released. A city choosing transparency, managers choosing discipline, prosecutors choosing to charge. We can debate the speed, but the presence of motion matters in a country where stasis has too often been the reflex. Tyre's life, beyond the night of the stop, takes shape in stories his friends tell. The camera he carried, the way he would look up at the sky like it was telling him a secret, the skateboard rolling under his feet, the flick of a kickflip, the small hovering moment when boards and bodies float. There's a video of him at a park, moving the way young men move when they feel both free and invincible. There are photographs he took of ordinary things, a storefront at dusk, the clean geometry of a crosswalk, the way a tree looks when you stand right under it and look straight up. In these artifacts he leaves behind, there's evidence of a vision, of how he saw the world when it wasn't looking back at him with blue and red lights. The night he's beaten is a culmination, not an aberration. Specialized units across the country sometimes operate under a mandate that, if not carefully verified and constrained, can warp into a culture of domination. The name, Scorpion, wasn't a secret, it was a brand, and like brands, it communicated values, relentless, fearless, stinging. But the truth is, the best public safety is not stinging, it's steadying. It's relationships and accountability, not a tactical swagger that mistakes intimidation for crime prevention. Tyre's death pulls these differences into focus. City leaders face tough questions about the incentives they created, about the pressure to deliver numbers, about the moral hazard of sending young officers into neighborhoods to hunt for stops that too often end up stopping people rather than crime. The national conversation takes up another refrain. If we cannot do traffic enforcement with body counts, perhaps we should do it differently. But again, policy is the scaffolding. Tyre is the story. His mother keeps a vigil in the space he used to occupy. She speaks into microphones with a discipline that is at once ferocious and tender. She offers her family's pain in the hope that it will be the last time someone has to do this, that dark joke of American grief. May this be the last time. The last time a mother offers her son's name as a warning label. The last time a city draws the outline of a person on the pavement and calls it a plan.
4 traffic stops, 4 names: Philando, Daunte, Patrick, Tyre. 4 scenes that begin with the same opening shot, a set of flashing lights in a rear-view mirror. And then the divergence, the way a stop can fork into 2 paths, one where everyone goes home annoyed or relieved, and one where someone doesn't go home at all. The reasons for the stops are the kind of things that fill a citation book, but don't populate most of our nightmares. Equipment issues, mismatched plates, expired tags, allegations of reckless driving. If you stack the reasons next to the outcomes, the scale breaks. It doesn't balance. It can't. What holds us in these stories is not just the brutality or the mistakes, it's the ordinariness of the moments just before. The lunchroom at a school, the air freshener in a car, a morning with a gray sky, a skateboard ride. The way the everyday narrows down to a single point of decision when strangers meet at a car window on the side of a road. In every one of these stops, there is a moment, maybe it's a breath, maybe it's a word, that could have rerouted the outcome. A different tactic, a step back, a supervisor on scene sooner, a policy that prioritizes de-escalation over domination, a willingness to see the person in the driver's seat as a neighbor, not a threat profile. These moments are both small and monumental. They live at the intersection of training and temperament, of systems and split-second judgment. They are hard to standardize and easy to neglect, which is precisely why they must be taught, practiced, rewarded. There is also the matter of cameras. In these stories, technology doesn't save lives, it preserves the truth. The videos, Diamond's live stream, the body cam feeds, the street-side bystander clip become archive and evidence, teacher and tormentor. They help jurors, they help historians, they help us not look away or rewrite the flicker of memory to favor the most powerful. But they do not bring anyone back. The promise of accountability is a second-best promise. The first-best promise, safety, is the one these families earned and did not receive. If you've stayed with me, you know this isn't just a reel of injustice. It is a roll call. It is a table set for 4, and the chairs sit empty. Philando Castile made a school cafeteria feel like a place where dignity was served alongside mashed potatoes.
Imagine him moving through the kitchen morning rush, tying an apron, whistling a little, knowing exactly which student is going to sneak a second carton of chocolate milk, and deciding on purpose not to see it. He was the kind of adult who makes childhood kinder. When we say his name, let it taste like gratitude, because every community runs on the quiet work of people like him. Daunte Wright was 20. Think about 20, the license that still feels like a passport, the way a Friday night is a whole season, the earliest version of your life just beginning to come into focus. He had a son who will learn his father's laugh by hearing it in the voices of other people. When we say his name, let it come out soft at the edges, a sound fit for a lullaby. Patrick Lyoya came from a place where mornings carried danger. He and his family made it here because they believed in a different kind of morning. He died on a small patch of American grass, which is not the kind of earth anyone flees toward. When we say his name, stretch it out across syllables until it feels like a prayer for safe passage for every person who has ever crossed an ocean to find a better life and ended up at a traffic stop. Tyre Nichols pointed a camera at ordinary things and made them beautiful. That is talent and discipline and love all braided together. He looked at concrete and saw color. He looked at sky and saw structure. He rode a skateboard the way birds fly, by trusting the air. He called out for his mother, a sound that turns every hallway in America into a corridor of echoes. When we say his name, let it catch in our throats and then clear so that we can say it again and again until it becomes one of the words we use to measure what we owe one another. This is not a story with an ending we can wrap in a bow. Some cases have verdicts, some do not. Some officers are convicted, some are not. Some cities change, some resist. But the measure of us, of our patience, our courage, our willingness to learn, will be taken not in the sharp hours after a video drops, but in the dull hours when policy is written, when training scenarios are selected, when supervisors decide what conduct earns a quiet compliment in the locker room and what earns a corrective memo. Cultural weather forms there, storms gather there, sunlight does too. The question is simple and severe. What will we build in the space between the next set of flashing lights turning on and the moment the driver pulls safely away? Will we build habits that honor life? Will we step back when stepping in makes the world smaller? Will we whisper instead of shout? Will we wait for backup without turning urgency into violence? Will we, at the very least, refuse to turn minor into mortal? Say their names one more time. Philando Castile, Daunte Wright, Patrick Lyoya, Tyre Nichols.